Welcome to Offscreen. Let's get cinematic on your couch, hopefully not for too much longer. I'm Becks Perfect.
I'm Van Connor. Let's get cinematic, as you say, Beck. So we've got a very interesting week this week. It's always an odd one. You know, the week before the Oscars is always an odd week for film releases, like historically speaking. You're never going to get like, you know, an Avengers movie open on Oscar week, so to speak. But yeah, this one's very interesting. So this week we've got two movies that seem to be like psychological horror-tinged thrillers about sort of, you know, one's a teenage girl, another's a woman in her sort of late 20s, early 30s. So it's definitely a week for female-driven psychological horror thrillers, I think.
I'm really glad that I handed over these two movies for you to watch, because you know horror is not my thing. And to be honest, I'm like, you take these ones, Van, and you run with them.
You know what? Horror is not really their thing either. They're not. Neither's horror in the traditional sense. So let's start with Black Bear, which I think Black Bear is out today on digital. So this is the Aubrey Plaza one. So this is written and directed, I think, by Lawrence Michael Levine. This has been touted around the sort of festival circuit for about what feels like about a year. Like most of COVID, this film's been around now. And because Aubrey Plaza had Happiest Season, and there's been a couple other little projects of hers in the works at the same time, there's been overlap with a lot of this coverage. So this feels like it's sort of fallen between the cracks, as it were. And this is essentially a two-part festival-friendly psychological horror thriller, in which for the first part she is a filmmaker who is burnt out due to some sort of work-related pressure. She has absconded to like a remote bed and breakfast in the country, where she has she's gone there for sort of relaxation, to sort of gather her thoughts, to pause, and she finds her presence disruptive to the young married couple who own the property, who she starts to bond with, and whose presence it starts to form cracks in this marriage. But for the other part as well, she's the actress on the set of one of her own films, the filmmaker that she was in the previous iteration. She's now the star of her film, as it were, only now the filmmaker was the husband in the couple in the first part, and she's on the other side of effectively the same love triangle. I've got a clip for you that sort of sets the tone. This is between her in the first part with Christopher Abbott as the home-owning husband.
Why'd you lie to me about seeing my movies?
Why'd you lie to me about your husband?
I've been lying since the second I got here. My mother's fine. Well, she's a but she's alive. She's in Wisconsin. I'm a really good cook. I just have zero interest in having a family. I think children are disgusting. And as for my scripts, I usually start with like a really simple premise, like good triumphs over evil. And I stopped getting hired as an actor because I was difficult, obviously.
So two things on this. Number one, Aubrey Plaza, hot property.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, this is just another testament to that fact. Secondly, it sounds very meta. She's in a movie, she's not in a movie. What's going on? Like, how's this working? Or in a movie.
That's the thing. On the one hand, I feel like if they had sensationalized it in that way and actually gone really meta with it, I think the film would have had more character to play with. I think it would have offered more. The film doesn't quite work. It's got the filmmaking chops behind it. Lawrence Michael Levine, who's not really a known commodity as a director, who's helmed this, has done a pretty good job in terms of building something that fits within that very A24 friendly horror aesthetic. You know that you get things like what was the one? Not Catastrophe, Coherence. I think not Coherence.
Yeah.
There was one a few years ago about the group of friends who were all trapped in a house and they kept walking around the block and coming back on themselves. It feels like it belongs within that pantheon of horror movie, or something like It Comes at Night, or something like that. It does feel like it's part of the current conversation as regards low-key character-driven psychological horror films. The problem is you feel like this just would have been a lot more memorable and would have had a lot more to say had they amped up the sensationalist side of it.
Yeah.
It feels like yet another one of these for Aubrey Plaza where you think, this is not the thing that's going to bring you the widespread audience that your fans, myself included, know that you deserve. I know you can do this because I've seen you do it 8 times already. I've seen you do it with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek in Ingrid Goes West. I've seen you do it, as an out-and-out comedy that time. I've seen you do it and I've seen so many iterations of this now where it feels like a waste of Aubrey Plaza at this stage. It feels like I know I'm going to slap 5 stars on this coming out for Aubrey Plaza, probably a 3 for the actual film. If I'm going to split the difference, 4, and that's about it. But it does feel kind of rote about it.
And that's a shame, I think, because she deserves a bigger platform to really sort of, you like you say, make that transition into the real mainstream A-list kind of...
Very mumblecore.
Yeah, what she's been sort of grafting towards, I think, for a hell of a long time. So I know you've given it maybe a 4 out of a 5, but how does this sit in terms of thumbs? That's more important, obviously.
It's 1 thumb. It's 1 out of 2 thumbs. I mean, to be honest with you, if the movie were marginally better, it'd be 1.5. If Aubrey Plaza were marginally worse, it would be a half. It's a very carefully balanced thumb rating system. Aubrey Plaza's carrying a lot in this film, put it that way. She's a hell of an actress. She really is. She's got abundance. She's just got an abundance of screen charisma. She always has. But sooner or later, someone is going to find that perfect project for Aubrey Plaza. And I mean, who knows? It might be Guy Ritchie with this Jason Statham action that she's doing. It might be that, we don't know. But there needs to be something that shows off Aubrey Plaza as the absolute wunderkind that those of us who sat through all of Parks and Recreation know that she is.
You know what? Aubrey's agents, if you're listening in, work harder is what we'd say. Find her those scripts. Right, moving on to something that, you couldn't think whether or not you'll be scared of this, but you know what? Scaredy cats like me might find it just as scary as any other walk outside the house. It's The Fear of Rain, which is the title of our next movie.
Right. This is another one. This is another one as well that it feels like it's been around for about a year, because I think all the talent involved had been banding stuff around social media for the film for about a year, every time it's been at a virtual festival. And in this case, it's been you see it reposted and reshared from people like Harry Connick Jr., Katherine Heigl, and Madison Iceman, I want to say. Now, the reason you would know Madison Iceman is she's the character in the Jumanji series who gets put into Jack Black's body. The vacuous blonde one who's also in Goosebumps 2. Yeah, she's the star here. She's the young girl who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. She's being treated for a serious case of schizophrenia, and effectively finds herself in the plot of Rear Window, where she thinks the next door neighbor has a girl chained up in her house that only she can see and hear. But every time she tries to, every time she calls the authorities, they accuse her of crying wolf. Guess why? And it's handled in a very art housey way. So they're trying to do it with a little bit of sensitivity.
So, how was your first day back?
It was great. Yeah, everyone thinks I'm a freak.
Oh, I doubt that. Isn't it cool to be different nowadays?
Not recently hospitalized for psychosis. It's like the biggest event of the year for them. It's ridiculous. I mean, everyone knows. Even my teachers.
It'll blow over. Someone will get a bad haircut, or Alexa will make out with someone's boyfriend, and they'll forget all about it.
Yeah, she just won't talk to me anymore. She's got cool new friends who love to hear horror stories about hanging out with a crazy girl.
Stop calling yourself that.
It's like I'm a social currency.
So I feel like this is just one big cliche of a movie. Is it? Is it
absolutely is. It really is. I mean, it's a novel enough spin on an old hook. So the old hook obviously is let's do Rear Window again. That and as a formula goes, Rear Window is a pretty easy one to spin new mileage out of. You just look at something like Disturbia, for instance. That was a decade ago. It's easy enough to put new spins on this material. Adding teens and mental health, that's actually a pretty novel spin on it. I wish the film was marginally better, in a manner that concept, I think, deserves. I don't think it's as good as that concept deserves. It's a bit middling when it comes to building suspense. That's the problem. It's pleasantly enough shot, and this is actress turned director Castile Landon, who has recently taken on not only directing, I think, films 3 and 4 in the After series, but also 5 and a prequel as well. So God help us. This is capably built, but it's pretty blandly written, and it's pretty disappointingly executed because there's just not enough going for it. It just keeps going in circles. It makes you want to see the ending. It's good enough for you to want to see the ending, but it does make you question whether or not you want to stick it out.
You know, with the Black Bear movie, you're trying to reference other horror movies where those people that they leave the house and they walk around and they come back again. Maybe that's this film. And they end up in place again. So how many thumbs are you going to give this one? I feel like this has got slightly less plaudits than you would have given Black Bear because it hasn't got Aubrey Plaza.
I think they're both one thumb films, I think. Fear of Rain is out digitally from Monday as well, by the way. So I think that's the 26th. I think that's the 26th on Monday. But Fear of Rain is Monday, but Black Bear is out from today, both on digital. I think Black Bear edges Fear of Rain out ever so slightly. But you know what? Madison Iceman, best thing about Fear of Rain, she actually has got some serious charisma beyond the obvious what you would expect of the sort of Barbie doll kind of bobblehead looks that she's got. She actually has, I do think, deceptive dramatic heft.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. It's got some redeeming features. Right, when we come back, we're going to be talking you guys through all of the movies that are on your telly box at the moment. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Off Screen, and as Miss Perfect promised, we're keeping you on the couch with something cinematic courtesy of Freeview, the glorious Freeview network. 500 channels, never anything to watch, but alas, we shall prove that wrong by selecting one truly great, or at least vaguely fun movie for each day of the next 7, the calendar week. So let's start then with Saturday Night, a movie that I love quite dearly, Miss Perfect. I don't know. And I think it's a movie that I'll bring up a lot in the arguments of sequels that are better than the originals, and no one ever thinks of this one. It is 2008's Hellboy 2, The Golden Army by Guillermo del Toro. This is on ITV at 10:50 on Saturday night. This is the movie that this feels like it came. I think it was said it came about 2 years too late for the fate of the Hellboy series, or it came 2 years too early. It just sort of missed out on the MCU wave of comic book popularity. Hellboy returns and is forced to take on the scorned prince of the dark fairy tale kingdom, who has returned from the underground to basically unite the pieces of an ancient crown that will give him control of the Golden Army, a mythical army of artificially created, like mechanical clockwork beings that will give him dominion over all life. And only Hellboy can stop him. But of course, there's got to be something more to it than that. And it turns out the evil prince has a not-so-evil sister, for whom Hellboy's BFF Abe Sapien finds himself falling. And both Hellboy and Abe Sapien find themselves having romantic problems at the worst possible time.
Popular love songs. Oh, Abe. You fell for the princess. She's like me, creature from another world. You need to get out more. She's alone in the world. I want to help her. I need to care for her.
You're in love. Have a beer.
Oh, my body's a temple.
Well, now it's an amusement park.
No. The glandular balance.
Just shut up and drink it, would you?
When I first got the list of what was coming on this week, I very tentatively, as I always have to do with Van, is when it's something Hellboy or Marvel or something like that, I have to kind of go, so Van, I'm thinking about picking this particular film for the week. It's a sequel. Are you going to be happy with it, with a sequel? Because I don't know. You sometimes, you will go stratospheric over certain sequels that just don't work. And I'm like, we want to recommend something. We don't want to kind of put people off. But I'm pleased to say you love this. You think it's better?
I'm a very big fan of Hellboy 2. I went to the premiere for my birthday. I think it was my 25th birthday, I think. I went to the premiere of Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, with my good friend Lucy. I'm a very big fan. I think it's a really great movie. I think there's a lot of fun to be had. Seth MacFarlane joins the cast in this one. as Johann Schmidt, I believe. And
What a name.
he's a lot of fun in there as well. Just a really good villain in Luke Goss, and just some great, great effects, some great creature designs. It's a Guillermo del Toro movie, so you know it's going to be made to a certain standard. And of course, he has really great reverence for Hellboy, for Mike Mignola's original works of Hellboy, and it shows in what I think is a really, really great movie. Obviously, the reboot a couple of years ago now by Neil Marshall did not stack up that well, but nonetheless, that's its own story for another time. And I think The Reckoning hopefully has redeemed him somewhat this past week. But on to Sunday then, the 25th, Miss Perfect, on ITV4, 3:15 in the afternoon. What you got for us? Are you taking us back in time, or are you taking us to the great beyond, as the case may be here?
A little bit of both. This is a film that I think is not shown on TV enough.
Is it?
No, it's not. It's one of my all-time faves. And again, I think this is a sequel that is better than the original.
Really?
Yes. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I mean, this is excellent. The Wild Stallions are back, and they are faced with two evil robots, Evil Bill and Evil Ted, and who have sent to them by Chuck Denomulus to the 20th century.
Denomulus.
Yeah, God, I haven't seen this in so long. And they're basically trying to stop the real Bill and Ted from winning a band competition, which will ultimately save the world.
I think Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey never gets the credit that it deserves. I think it's a really good movie. I think there was something to do with the fact that because the release of the first movie got delayed by about a year, by the time the first movie opened, it hadn't even hit VHS before I think the sequel arrived in cinema. So there was this feeling, especially on this side of the pond, it was a very rushed sequel, when in fact I don't think it was. Keanu Reeves himself has been quite down on the film in recent years, but I think it's a pretty good, pretty well constructed sequel that has a hell of a soundtrack, if nothing else. It follows up its first movie quite nicely, evolves the characters sufficiently. I think ended the film rather nicely. I love the closing montage.
Yeah.
You see generations to come of Bill and Ted and what their contributions to humanity are, even though there's the whole third movie that kind of undoes that now. Just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you've got the introduction of like the iconic character of Death. You know, like this is the thing. It's like...
Exactly, worth it for Death, and that was such a 1990s gag of, you know what? Okay, we're going to take a parody of this one famous image because films are starting to get released on VHS now. So a whole generation of film nerds now know what the Seventh Seal is. So let's do a parody of that. I guarantee you something ridiculous like 60% of people who know the image of Max von Sydow in the Seventh Seal know it entirely because of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, because of being the source and inspiration for Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I think I'm one of those people, you know, like that's the thing for me. The character of Death is so iconic in this and so funny. And I think this is a sharper comedy than The Excellent Adventure. I think it doesn't, it gives better sort of character depth, as you've said as well, to not only Bill and Ted, but also the princesses and stuff like that. You know, there's more to it. So you've got more meat to the bone with this. So revisit it. It's been a while since we've seen it. It should be on TV much more than it is. But enjoy it. It's a great afternoon movie.
There's so many great moments in it as well. I mean, it's Bill and Ted doing the afterlife. I mean, the ad campaign, if I remember correctly, the voiceover famously said, "Once they made history, now they are history."
Yeah,
and that was the tagline for it. And, it holds up. I love the bit where they're sort of standing before the gates of hell. And Bill says, "We got totally lied to by our album covers." I'm just like, yeah, because that was every album cover in about 1991 was just this depiction of the flaming afterlife. Anyway, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, not on TV anywhere near enough. Freeview never show. They all show the first one. They never show the sequel. So jump on this rare opportunity that Miss Perfect has found for us to catch Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey on ITV4, of all places, on a Sunday afternoon. Worth checking out 3:15.
Absolutely.
On to Monday night then. Not even Monday night, but sort of a tea time Monday viewing, this one.
Pre-Watershed.
Pre-Watershed. It's like a 12A rated film, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's talk then. Film 4, tea time slot. It's The Martian, Ms. Perfect. How much do we love The Martian on this show?
Do you know what? I think, it is one of those movies, and I think we did sort of struggle with Monday because we were a bit like, there's not a huge amount out there, and we wouldn't have necessarily thrown in The Martian again because we have talked about it quite recently, but actually we can give it a little bit more time because it is that brilliant. Matt Damon is a botanist. He gets stranded on Mars. He's going to science the bejesus out of it in order to survive. And this, for me, is just a movie that works in every way, shape, or form. It's from Ridley Scott. It's back to his brilliant best. And for a one-man band, essentially, which is holding up this film, Matt Damon is phenomenal.
He's 50 million miles away from home. He thinks he's totally alone. He thinks we gave up on him. I mean, what does that do to him, man, psychologically? The hell is he thinking right now?
I'm definitely gonna die up here if I have to listen to any more god-awful disco music.
My God, Commander Lewis, couldn't you have packed anything from this century?
Matt Damon there struggling with, of all things, the soundtrack to his quest for survival. And what a soundtrack it is. I don't think I expected to love that anywhere near as much as I do. Although I do remember you and I going to a screening at Fox once. There was a screening of The Martian happening next door, and it was I Will Survive blaring through the building. That was a good afternoon. So yes, The Martian. If you've not seen The Martian, or if you want to revisit it, it's on at a good time as well. 6:15 on Monday evening on Film 4. Perfect one to whack on the background while you're having tea, and a perfectly fun science-y adventure thriller for the whole family, I think, as well. So when we return, we're talking rap biopics, we're talking special effects trilogy closers, Bond movies, and of all things, some found footage. And now it's time for a segment we like to call Off-Screen Pays the Bills. Hey, Becks.
Hey, Van. What's going on?
Hey, nothing going on but the rent, you know that. And you know what? This week we've got a reason to smile, and smile brilliantly indeed, with the aid of our wonderful sponsors for this week, the good people at Smile Brilliant. And, this is, a problem I think a lot of people have, grinding their teeth in their sleep. Apparently, 40 million people do. 40 million other people, and it's for a variety of reasons that include stress, anxiety, or an abnormal bite. Chronic teeth grinding can lead to worn enamel, tooth decay, sleeplessness, and expensive dental procedures. Are there any other kind of dental procedures but the expensive kind? Indeed. But with our sponsors at Smile Brilliant, they have the #1 teeth grinding prevention recommended by dentists, which is a custom-fitted night guard. And unlike the average dentist, where they'll charge you $200 to $300 per guard, and you go through several of them per year, you can use Smile Brilliant's Lab Direct process to get the same custom-fitted night guards for as little as $45 per guard, and they've got everything on there, included custom-fitted whitening trays and the Carry Pro electric toothbrush to go along with them as well. And all you need to do for an extra 30% off as well is head over to smilebrilliant.com and use Off-Screen at checkout for 30% off. Once again, that's smilebrilliant.com and use Off-Screen at checkout for 30% off. Do you know what? I think that's a reason to smile. Bex, what do you think?
Absolutely. I've suffered with, stress-related sort of, biting down on my teeth when I'm sleeping, things like that. And, anything that you can do at an affordable level to help sort that is going to be a big tick in my book. So this sounds brilliant. Welcome back to Off-Screen. We're keeping you on your couch and we're keeping you in front of your telly box because we are continuing our 7-day guide to everything movies, which are available for you on Freeview. And we've had a good selection to kick off the week. But you know what? The week only gets better, doesn't it, Van?
It does for me, but only because I'm going to make you say the title of our next film in the manner in which you just so eloquently and in your perfect estuary accent asked me a moment ago. So would you please, Miss Perfect, for the good listeners at home, tell us the name of the film showing on Tuesday evening on ITV4 at 11:25 p.m.
Oh, goodness me. Of course, it's Straight Out of Compton.
in a week in which they announce a sequel to Downton Abbey the movie, I love that I have gotten you to say Straight Out of Compton, which is, of course, the very well received, I think it was 2015 NWA biopic, which starred Ice Cube's real son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., as Ice Cube, playing his own father. It's the story of the highly influential, game-changing gangster rap outfit and how they rose to power, how they got screwed with along the way, and how they screwed back whenever they could.
Say this like you believe it, man. Like it's a Sunday and you cruising down Crenshaw in a 6'4". Come on, say that like you believe it, man. Like it's your words. Feel that. Stop playing around. Loosen the up. There you go.
Cruising down the street in my 6'4".
Oh. Hey, that was dope, eh? It's dope, man. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. you feeling that, right? Now we only got 59 more lines to punch in. But it's all good. We're going to get through it. Let's go on to the next one.
Is that the clip that in our entire history of doing off-screen has had the most bleeps in it?
No, I think the one that has the most bleeps still belongs to Peter Capaldi in The Loop. I think his character of Malcolm Tucker, I think, still holds the record for the most bleeps. I think, offhand. There might be a Nicolas Cage one that tops it somewhere, but you never know. Straight Outta Compton, the worst thing I can say about Straight Outta Compton is that it's now been 6 years, and I demand my cinematic shared universe that I was promised out of this, because we were supposed to be getting spin-off movies about so many rappers based on entirely on this, and I'd like to point out that means that there is a Lakeith Stanfield Snoop movie on someone's shelf somewhere, and I need that movie in my life.
There was a Tupac movie, wasn't there, that came out not so long
There
after.
was, and it was terrible. It was really terrible.
I wouldn't say it was terrible. It was watchable, but it was. Do you know what? I thought Jada Pinkett Smith in it was terrible, as in how it was portrayed. But yeah, like that's the only one that comes to mind when I think of this. But actually, you know what? Straight Outta Compton. Wow, what an impact that this had, like a social impact. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's well constructed, brilliantly cast, brilliantly acted. Well worth your time to revisit. I actually revisited this not too long ago, I think over Christmas. And, you know, it feels, although it's a biopic, it feels very present. You know, the way it's shot, the way it's kind of portrayed for a modern audience works really well. So if you're wanting to re-educate yourself on the world of NWA, the impact that they had at the time, this is the movie to do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find one that doesn't come with the Beats branding before and after as well, because that was a bit patronising during the screening. Also, you notice the movie does shy away from certain topics its subjects would really rather did not ever get discussed around them again. And I am thinking specifically of a certain incident involving Dre and Dee Barnes, which noticeably does not come up in the film. Funny that. Anyway, on to Wednesday night. It's the 28th. It's on 4/7, 9 p.m, a movie I adore. And I still think I can make an argument for this being one of the best film trilogies ever. This is the third installment of the rebooted trilogy that began in 2011. I think it was my second week as a film critic I got to review the first one. I've now reviewed all three of these. It's War for the Planet of the Apes by Matt Reeves, starring Andy Serkis as Caesar. Your villain this time around is Woody Harrelson. Steve Zahn joins the cast as Bad Ape. And it is Caesar the Ape going out for revenge when human militants murder his wife and son. Said militants being led by the psychotic The Colonel, played by a shaven-headed, very Apocalypse Now-influenced Woody Harrelson.
Have you finally come to save your apes?
I came for you.
For me? Almost human. How did you know I was here?
I was told you were coming. That more soldiers from the north would be joining you here.
Joining me?
To finish us off. For good.
I always thought that Woody Harrelson in this was just so spine-tinglingly good as a villain in this. Like
he is. He goes into sort of full natural born killers mode. Maybe it's the shaved head again.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's a wonderful sweaty quality to him, isn't there?
Yeah, and I know I don't know if it was this film or the one prior to this where there was all this hoo-ha that actually Andy Serkis should have been nominated for Oscars and stuff for, his performance. Was it this one or was it the previous one? I can't remember.
I think that started with the previous one, and it carried on through the third one as well. But I think that's just always going to be the case as long as Andy Serkis is putting on the mocap suit, to be really honest. I mean, I keep waiting for them to actually properly incorporate him somewhere into like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I could see that happening, for instance, when they get down to doing something like the Fantastic Four, actually finally getting sort of Andy Serkis in as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, throwing money at him to be the Thing would be phenomenal. I mean, could you imagine? But I mean, I think he's great in War for the Planet of the Apes. I think Steve Zahn also does a great job as well as Bad Ape, and it's nice to get a bit of work in there for Toby Kebbell as well as in flashbacks as Cobra. It's nice to see him back as Cobra as well.
Do you know what, though? This is a long, long movie. It's 2 hours, 22 minutes, right? So you gotta...
Yeah, you don't really feel it so much, though, because there's a lot going on. It's a pacey movie, I think.
Yeah. I wasn't as big a fan of this one as I was the one that sits in the middle. I think that sort of... For a middle movie, it's like The Middle Child. It kind of... It goes against the grain of what you'd expect the middle movie to do, like setting up the end of the trilogy. But... actually, the middle movie for me was a hell of a lot stronger. But
I can see where you're coming from, because this Apes trilogy does follow sort of the Nolan Batman formula. You've got the actiony one to begin with, you've got the really deep introspective one in the middle, and then you've got the sort of warm one, the long war movie that has to be a bit pacey, that has to combine the two for the third one. And I think that's where sort of even Christopher Nolan struggled with that on Batman. So it's only fair to see the Apes as well. But I think that's worth checking out anyway on 4/7 on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. So I was amazed you picked this next one, by the way, Miss Perfect.
Well,
it's one of my favourites.
Well, good, because I picked it for you because nobody does it better. This is on ITV4 at 9 p.m. We're talking about Roger Moore as Bond, James Bond in The Spy Who Loved Me.
I adore this movie. It's one of first of all, Barbara Bach in Spy Who Loved Me is one of my very favourite Bond girls, which used to really irritate an ex-girlfriend of mine when she saw me reading a book called Bond Girls, The Art of Bond Girls. And of course, that's the page I'm forever just happening to browse past. And so this is where Bond is forced to team up with a Russian agent, Triple X, played by Barbara Bach. I think she's the wife of Ringo Starr, still in reality, I believe. His Russian counterpart, whose partner he has murdered on as collateral damage on a previous operation, and they go in search of the latest madman who seeks to take over the world. This one's name is Drax, and he wants to sink the world and have everyone live in, I think, hermetically sealed underwater bubbles. And that's the evil scheme this time around. His way of doing it is he's going to, I think he's going to swallow British and Russian naval carriers, make each one think that the other one has destroyed them, and start a war. This plot would later get revisited in Tomorrow Never Dies, but done a bit less tongue-in-cheek, if we're being honest. In that case, Bond had to team up with his Chinese female counterpart rather than his Russian one. It's a classic, though.
Yeah.
It's the one where he goes to Egypt and fights Jaws. It's also one of the only ones that acknowledges Bond's dead wife, actually, as well.
Well, do you know what? I'm glad you enjoy it as much as you do, because I think a lot of people will revisit this and remind themselves just how good it is. So, because it came out in 1977 was when it first came out. So, in terms of stuff that just still live up to it, it's brilliant. But moving on to our final pick of the week, I'm a fan. Van's not. It only leads me to think that Van is just a real scaredy cat for this. But if you're going to watch something on a Friday night, make it on BBC One at late night at 11:35 p.m. because The Blair Witch Project is on our screens. I like this, or I love this, because, before all this stuff sort of branched off from the way that this filmmaking worked and all the spin-offs and like the same technique overused again and again and again, this is the OG, right? So The Blair Witch Project, this is the one, handheld. People go into the woods to explore this kind of urban legend of a witch. Weird stuff starts happening. It's iconic. I don't necessarily remember everything that goes on in the movie, but what I do remember is when it was first shown at Sundance or one of the major festivals, the people literally ran out of the theatre watching this.
I can imagine, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, even though I don't like the film, I do respect it for its inclusion in film history.
Yeah.
Although there had been found footage films before, Blair Witch is the first film that I think really showed that you could make something economically and just box office-wise viable out of the found footage format, and obviously gave rise to dozens, hundreds, even thousands of films in the past 2 decades. So almost 25 years. I think it'll be 25 years in about another 3 years' time for Blair Witch. A very, very important film, and I think one of the defining films of 1999, which is when it came out. Like I say, I wasn't a fan. I know some people, obviously, a lot of people are. And obviously, it's one of those films that proved you don't need millions of dollars and the latest tech to make a film. You just need a good story. I'd argue Blair Witch doesn't have one of those, but points for trying.
Yeah, and also, this is a business of show, right? So the business side of this, the biggest strength and triumph, I think, for this movie is the marketing that hit it.
Isn't it still the most successful independent film ever made? Like
Quite possibly.
Just for Inflation. I think it's the most profitable, might be the most profitable film ever made, I think, when you were Just for Inflation.
But this is a simple time when people didn't know if this was a film or a documentary. And for that reason, go into it thinking you're not sure what you're going to get out of it. Is it truth or is it fiction? Who knows? The Blair Witch Project, it's there for you. BBC One, 11:35 p.m. on Sunday. Watch that, and then you guys can be sort of teed up for the week ahead, feeling like you've had no sleep because you're so scared. Perfect end to the week.
Welcome back for one last ride off screen, and we're taking you down the virtual DVD and Blu-ray aisle, where this week, you may have seen our only edition, because only ever like one film comes out every week now on DVD and Blu-ray. Kind of one of those things, one of those sad realities of life in COVID land. But this week, the release is Blithe Spirit, which you might remember we reviewed, I think about 6 weeks ago, something like that. This was on... It went to Sky Cinema, I think, in the UK. It was made and distributed by Pathé. Remake, well, not remake, but just another adaptation of Noel Coward's classic play. This one starred Leslie Mann and Dan Stevenson, Isla Fisher. He's the struggling writer whose dead wife appears to him as a spirit, as his muse, and inspires him to continue writing. But of course, only he can see and hear her, and there's a screwball comedy, the likes of which, it's so old hat, only Noel Coward could possibly have written them.
The ghost of my first wife is here with us in the room. Surely you can see her. She's standing right next to you.
Are you drunk? Who's she?
My wife.
I'm your wife.
Not anymore.
Can he, by any chance, touch her? I sincerely hope not. It's not a coincidence that you haven't published a word since my demise.
Finished the first act of my screenplay. Elvira helped me.
She's dangerous, Charles.
You're the one I love.
I haven't the foggiest idea how to send her back. You're in trouble now.
See, this would have taken loads of money in the cinema for the Grey Pound. Like,
would have, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Because obviously, like, Death on the Nile has been pushed back in like forever. There's always something like this that I think works really well for that particular audience. So you've got to take it for what it is. It is something that appeals to a slightly older crowd. And I think it's got everything it needs. It's got the right cast, Judi Dench is in there. Is Jennifer Saunders? No, Jennifer Saunders isn't in this, is she?
It's got an all-star cast, this one. I mean, the thing about it now is releasing it on DVD and Blu-ray just feels almost perfunctory at this stage. So I think anyone who's going to see this will have seen it. Anyone who is generally inclined will have been able to watch it on the Sky Store or watch it on Sky Cinema because it premiered, I think, same day. And they will have just, gotten it digitally by now. Like it does feel like a very perfunctory. This one is being put out just, I think, tick it off the list. I think more than anything else. The film is fine. So, like I say, really old hat. You've seen it done to death in really in other places. Paul Rudd did a version of this 15 years ago with Ava Longoria called Over Her Dead Body.
Yes.
Which, I mean, and would I watch that one again? No, Over My Dead Body. But, It's one of the things. We're going to keep doing this plot forever. Here's a version set in the Roaring 20s with Dan Stevens.
No, it's Dan Stevens. I thought you said that before.
Dan Stevens. There's a Stephen in there. That's all I know.
It's anyway, Downton, darling.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Tying it back to Downton. Let's go on to streaming then. On Prime, Monday, same day the Blood Spirit's out on DVD and Blu-ray. You say, right, here's my question, Becks. Right, we're talking about The Artist. The Artist is coming to Prime, Monday the 26th. This is, of course, going to be the day after, or canonically the day of, the Oscars. So, you'll be able to wake up, hear what's won Best Picture, and you'll be able to stream the film that won Best Picture exactly 10 years ago. Because this won Best Picture, was it 2011 or 2012?
Wow.
I mean, Christmas 2011 going into 2012. I've gone on record as saying that nobody has watched The Artist. Nobody's even mentioned The Artist in the past decade. What a forgotten film.
You're right. I hate to say it. You're absolutely right. I remember, I can't believe it was a decade ago, but I remember watching this and loving it, but you don't need to revisit it. It's it's like a one-hit wonder.
One and done, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one and done. But if you haven't watched it, it is still worth a watch. It's like, it's a bit like, in some respects, it's like Mank, right? So it's kind of this throwback to the golden age. But Mank's not going to pick up anything, really, at the Oscars.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because for all we know at the time of recording, it's like Mank very easily could. I have this horrible vision in my mind where in any normal year, Mank would walk away. I almost said it with a W by accident then. Mank would walk away, because I'm saying would walk away, and it's Mank. So obviously phonetically, that's going to be so. That's going to happen live on Oscar.
Wowzers.
Mank would walk away in any normal year with like Best Picture, and then nobody would ever speak or hear of it ever again. Just like The Artist, which was a perfectly enjoyable film, but we all gave it a award and then moved on. That was it. We didn't. Jean Desjardins, I think his name was. He got his role in Wolf of Wall Street out of it, and then at the Monuments Men, and then we never saw or heard from him again. That's it. That's I can't even remember the name of the female lead in that, who looked strangely like Rachel McAdams. But you know what? If you want a trip down memory lane, The Artist is there on Prime to revisit. You can possibly see why it won Best Picture, or you can argue with it.
Well, next up, released on Friday, in fact, is a movie that I think, hot off the heels of Bohemian Rhapsody, you would have expected this one to have done the same sort of business and to be the big awards contender again. However, Rocketman, which is going to be available on Netflix, didn't really, despite Elton John and Taron Egerton's best efforts, pick up in the way that maybe they were hoping.
You know why Rocketman didn't get awards, love? I'll tell you why. It's because its subject was alive. That's why. Because, you see, if you want to win all the awards for your biopic, you've got to be dead. You can't be alive like Elton John. Elton John's just greedy, you see. Elton John wants his award, love, but he doesn't want to put in the work and be dead first. Oh, no. He has to do it while he's out. Anyway, I'm joking. Rocketman's a very fun, a lot more of a musical film than Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody was more of a straight drama, more of a straight narrative drama. What you would call a quote-unquote normal film. This is more like a surrealist, heightened musical that, of course, does those great swinging set pieces, musical set pieces that are, anachronistic. They're not even done in order. So, for instance, he's singing Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting when he's depicting growing up in his hometown, and he's doing songs like I Want Love. This is Taron Egerton, performing and doing the singing. Songs like I Want Love, 20, 30 years before he even ever records that song. But it doesn't matter, because that's not the crux of the story. It's all about the emotional journey here. And I would argue that winds up making this story a lot more successful than Bohemian Rhapsody, up to and including his relationship with Richard Madden's antagonistic friend turned enemy.
What's this? Number 11 in Italy.
The song doesn't work. That's the problem. The record's coked out MOR.
The problem is you have never understood me and what I have to go through. And you know what? I should have sacked you when you left me.
I am glad I left you. It means I can maintain some objectivity in your self-indulgent, myopic little world. Get in the studio, make some music, or don't. I don't care.
Well, you will when your money runs out.
Do your worst. In fact, take me to court. You signed contracts with me years ago, so I'll still be collecting my 20% long after you've killed yourself.
I think the casting, Richard Madden and also Taron Egerton, is brilliant in this. I wasn't as massive a fan of Rocket Man. I liked the linear narrative of Bohemian Rhapsody. I wanted to learn about Elton and his life in this, and I think it took you too far to the far realms of his probably psychedelic version of life, which didn't quite work in its favour for me.
I mean, I quite like Jamie Bell as well in there. I thought Jamie Bell had a quite a good role.
He softens it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun in the Elton John story, and I think I was quite surprised actually that Elton John, knowing him as as the public persona that we do, I was surprised he was willing to go there as much as he does. He's quite unflinching towards himself at times, in a manner that we were just talking earlier about how Straight Outta Compton, noticeably holds back at times. Elton John, surprisingly, doesn't. He's quite willing to depict his own bad behaviour. But two other films we've got on streaming this week, which we're actually going to talk about as our new releases in next week, also on Friday the 30th. So Rocket Man's on Netflix on Friday the 30th. On Prime the same day, we've got the much delayed and almost forgotten about action movie Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, which stars Michael B. Jordan as the character from the Jack Ryan movies. His go-to character that he always turns to as his Navy SEAL figure. This is his own solo movie. So this is going to be an attempt to start a spin-off franchise in the Jack Ryan universe out of Michael B. Jordan. And also the same day on Disney Plus, not as a premium access one, but as a straight going to streaming. So for all subscribing, this is to push their new star tier. Disney Plus are adding what by then could very well be this year's Best Picture winner. It's Nomadland by Chloe Zhao and starring Frances McDormand. So that's going to be available to all Disney Plus subscribers on their Star Plus category from Friday the 30th as well.
I'm very excited to see Nomadland, and I think Chloe Zhao, at time of us recording this, we can make our predictions. She's going to pick up the Best Director. And
do you think so?
I think so. And also, I'd be really intrigued to see if she actually dresses up for the Oscars, because she hasn't for anything else that she's been nominated for. So it'll be really interesting to see if she sticks to the dress code on that. But yeah, my big hope is Frances McDormand to pick up the Oscar for Best Actress, as well as Chloe Zhao, and maybe this to get the hat trick with Best Picture as well would be amazing.
We shall find out, though. So by the time you hear from us next, we will of course know who has won this year's, I think it's the 93rd Academy Awards, which is taking place mere days from now on Sunday the 25th. Becks and I will be covering it with Paul Ross on TalkSports Extra Time from 1am. We're going to be covering it live on the night, so please do tune in, give us a listen. You can find out the results from me as well on Monday morning from 6am GMT on the Daily Reel. And of course, Becks and I will no doubt be dotted around British radio networks for the next few days afterwards, giving our hot take on the results, as we often do. I usually manage about 3 or 4 hours sleep before the first one, Becks. I know you're about as bad as I for that.
Yeah, I am. I'm just slowly cancelling everything else that I've got with my day on Monday, and moving on to remind myself to actually get some sleep afterwards.
Indeed,
but
indeed.
It is the most fun time of the year for us film critics, and we do love it dearly. So yeah, by the time we speak to you next, we'll have all the results. But for now, this has been Off Screen for this week. We're excited to bring you the new releases for next week, so make sure you stay tuned to us every single Friday. But for now, I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.